Hey guys, it's Mr. Forlenza. I'm going to take you through a quick tutorial of your interim grammar review that you're going to work on today in class, and if you don't finish it tonight for homework, this is going to prepare you for a couple of grammar standards that are going to be on your interim exam for tomorrow. So what you're going to need to do to be able to do this is you're going to need, obviously, the handout, the interim grammar review that Mr. Cheatham would have passed out to you. You're going to need a pen or a pencil so that you can kind of work the first couple of examples with me. And you're also going to need your green cruise grammar guide that you got at the beginning of the school year. If you do not have one or you lost yours, you can borrow a copy from Mr. Cheatham. I gave him a few extra copies. And if you're new, just go ahead and let him know that you're new and you never got one. And you can keep that green grammar guide since I never gave you one in the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video now so that you can go ahead and make sure that you have the interim grammar review, the green cruise grammar guide, and something to write with. And then I'll go through with the tutorial. Okay, so we're going to go through the first couple of examples of the interim grammar review together, and then I'm going to have you guys do the other ones on your own. So if we read the directions, it says, each of the following sentences contains verbals. Each of the verbals is underlined. Label each as a participle, a gerund, or an infinitive. And then it says independent clauses are highlighted. Below each sentence, identify the type of sentence as simple, compound, complex, or compound complex. Use your guided grammar sheet to help you identify verbals and sentence types. So I realize that we haven't done a whole lot of this year. There won't be tons of questions on it on the interim for tomorrow, but I just wanted to go ahead and review it real quickly just to make it sure that it was kind of fresh in your mind. So let's look at these first couple of sentences that I took from the diary of Anne Frank. The first one says, hiding in the secret annex was risky, but Mr. Frank wanted to protect his family from deportation camps. So we're going to go ahead and identify the verbals first. So I went ahead and I underlined them in example number 1, and you have 2 of them. You have hiding right over here, and then you have to protect right over here. So let's start first with hiding. Obviously, we know that hiding ends in ing. So it could possibly be two of our verbals. Which 2 of the verbals could it be? If you said it could be a gerund or it could be a participle, you would be correct. So let's really figure out what it's being used as in this sentence. So I see, if I'm looking for my verb here to identify this, I see was as a linking verb. So if I take out the prepositional phrase in the secret annex, it really reads as hiding was risky. Okay? So since hiding precedes the verb right over here, I've got my verb, of course hiding, needs to be my subject. So what looks like a verb but acts as essentially a noun. Okay? So hiding would be an example of a gerund since it's the subject of the sentence in example number 1. Alright, if we go over here and we see to protect, obviously we see to, and then protect is a verb, so to plus a verb would be which one of our verbals? Yeah, it should have been an infinitive. So we would label hiding as a gerund, and we would label to protect as an infinitive in the first example. So let's go ahead and take a look at our examples of our clauses. So within this sentence, we have 2 of them. We have hiding in the secret annex was risky, and we have Mr. Frank wanted to protect his family from deportation camps. Notice that they're both highlighted. So based off of the directions, the only kinds of clauses that would be highlighted would be independent clauses. So hiding in the secret annex is an independent. Hiding in the secret annex was risky is an independent clause, and Mr. Frank wanted to protect his family from deportation camps is also an independent clause. The reason why but is not included in a clause at all is because it is a coordinating conjunction. And we see the comma right over here essentially separating the 2 independent clauses. So if we have one independent clause, a coordinating conjunction, and a second independent clause, what kind of sentence type do we have? You would have wanted to label this as a compound sentence because it's 2 independent clauses. All right, let's go to example number 2. So example number 2, we have a lot more verbals in example number 2. We have taking, we have hiding, we have to do, we have to live, and we have to survive. And so the sentence reads, taking his family into hiding, Mr. Frank decided to do anything to live because he had the will to survive. All right, so let's start first. We're actually going to work backwards here, and let's go with the easiest ones. Obviously, in the second part of the sentence after the comma, we've got to do, to live, and to survive. we already talked about in the first example that to plus a verb is going to be what kind of verbal? That's right, they would be infinitives. So we would label to survive as an infinitive, we would label to live as an infinitive, and we'd label to do as an infinitive. So let's go to the trickier part. The trickier part what we have over here are both of our words that end in ing. So essentially we know that these are either participles, which are adjectives, or gerunds, which are nouns. Okay, once again, we're going to work backwards here. So if we see hiding, it ends in ing. So the decision that we need to make here is whether hiding is a gerund or whether hiding is a participle. So what do you think it is? Okay, if you said that it was a gerund, you would be correct. But now we need to talk about why it's a gerund. So if you said it's the gerund because it's the subject of the sentence, you would not be correct. The reason why hiding is a gerund is because before the word hiding, we see the word into. And into is an example of a preposition. So since hiding comes after the preposition, it makes hiding the object of the preposition. There's only three things that can be objects of prepositions: nouns, pronouns, or things that look like verbs but are actually nouns, meaning gerunds. Okay, so let's go to the last one, which is taking, right over here. So this one's a little bit difficult because at first glance you would think that taking is the subject of this clause, like it's the first word, just like hiding was in the first example. But if you look closer, taking can't be the subject of this clause because it's not a clause. And the reason why it's not a clause is it's missing a verb. There's no verb here. Taking his family into hiding, none of these words are verbs, which means taking can't be the subject of anything because it doesn't have a verb that's within this clause. So, therefore, taking is not the subject of the sentence. So, if taking is not the subject of the sentence, it's most likely not a noun. So, based off of that, taking is a participle. And the reason why taking is a participle is that it basically describes Mr. Frank. It's telling you what he's doing within this sentence. The action that Mr. Frank is doing is taking, which makes it a participle because it's describing what he's doing in the sentence. It's not telling you that he is taking, but it's describing the actions that he is doing within the sentence. Decided would be the verb that goes with Mr. Frank. All right, so let's go to the second part right over here and decide what kind of sentence this is. So taking his family into hiding, we know that that is not a clause at all. That's actually a participial phrase describing Mr. Frank. It says Mr. Frank decided to do anything to live. So based off of this, right over here, we have a independent clause. Taking his family into hiding, Mr. Frank decided to do anything to live. Okay? So then we have to go to the second part. This is an independent clause in the first example. It says because he had the will to survive. And obviously we know the fact that it's not highlighted that this is a dependent clause. But let's talk about why it's a dependent clause. And the reason why is because the clause starts with a subordinating conjunction. The subordinating conjunction being because. So we have because he had the will to survive. So with an independent clause right over here and a dependent clause over here, what kind of sentence do we have? You would be correct if you said a complex sentence. All right, I'm going to leave you guys to do the other three examples on your own to be able to see if you can do it. If you want to see me in the morning to see whether you did them correctly or before the interim, we can talk about a couple of the things that you had trouble with. But the expectation is that today, after you get done reading the Diary of Anne Frank, scenes 4 and 5 with Mr. Cheatham, that you work on this in class and also for homework. And in addition to that, you finish your Act 2 activity packets that deal with the Diary of Anne Frank. So all of that work needs to be done by tomorrow. Thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully that this was helpful. And if you have any questions, you can definitely ask me tomorrow.